Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a Zone 5B in Michigan, and today we're going to be planting out some annuals. Also some perennials are going to be in there, not a whole lot, but many more annuals. We're finally past our last frost state, but it is a really cool, chilly morning here. We're in the 50s and it's overcast and really windy. So hopefully we'll stay warm enough as we go through this. Definitely as I start to do the planting, I'm sure it will work out. All right, well, let's get started. So in this garden bed, along the front here, we have bilberry heucheras, and we also have what I believe is the black onyx heuchera. And I want to line the garden bed on the edge with some alyssum because I think that will help this to pop right in between the edge of the rocks as well as this variegated catchfly, which is beginning to bloom. It has some beautiful pink blooms, but also the foliage remains beautiful in between blooms because of that variegation. So I think this is going to be a winning combination. Let's get started. I just love the softness that the alyssum can bring to the garden, especially along the edge. So we're going to plant these out. Let's find some spots for them first. I think that if I can put them kind of in between some of these heucheras, that will help to continue to make sure that they show up, because I don't want the heucheras to grow over them too much. Definitely want to see them. And this is called Wonderland Deep Purple. That's the variety that we have here. I picked these up at the Michigan State University horticultural plant sale that I volunteered at. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I volunteer at like a plant event, I end up spending a bunch of money. But it's usually worth it. I definitely enjoyed it. So this tool that I'm using today, I get a lot of questions about it simply because of the curved handle. This is from Radius, and it is actually called an Ergonomic Transplanter. So it's just a little bit longer than a trowel, and that allows you to dig nice and deep. And the handle is nice and wide. If you have arthritis or problems with a grip, that's really good. And then it's better on your wrist because the radius allows you to kind of grip it ergonomically. Honestly, I just use whatever I can find. I try to buy tools that I like and have a variety of them for different tasks. But in regards to this one, it was the closest one to me when I was getting ready to start this project. So I very well could have used any of the trowels that I own. I could use a hori-hori knife as well because those are also really great for digging. Now, these are not going to be perfectly spaced apart, and they won't cover the entire area, but they will just add that little edge of flare that helps fill in. This alyssum or labularia is really good in part shade or part sun. It does not like to get too hot, and as you get into the summer months, it's really good to watch it, because if it starts to get a little bit ratty looking or kind of not as full, you might want to come through and just take that as an opportunity to cut it back. And after you cut it back, it will flush right back out again with some additional blooms. And it can't hurt to do a little fertilizing when you do that as well, just to help it push some growth. Whether you use a liquid feed or some organic fertilizer, any of those will work. The liquid feed is usually automatically readily available to the plants, so they can use it and it helps them to absorb it faster. Got quite a few little projects for us today. I think we're going to get a lot done in a short period of time. To me, it's some of these things, these little finishing touches, that really make the garden sing. It can be very beautiful without them, but it certainly makes a difference. So you can see how that little pop of color makes a difference just along this edge, and as those heucheras fill out, they push the growth up at first, and then the leaves will come out to the sides and it will mingle wonderfully with that purple alyssum. All right, on to our next project. So we planted some dahlias in a couple of the large pots over here, which look really nice up by the pool, but we have some other things that I want to fill in with. I don't have anything else to add to the dahlia pots, but now we're going to begin adding to these tall ones that are on the end here, and I have a couple of different things that we're going to put in them. So first up, we have this Supertunia Royal Magenta Petunia, and there's no real blooms on it right now. This one was on the clearance rack. It was $5.98, so it's marked down to $4 because there are no blooms on it and it was kind of struggling. So I got 2 of these, so I'm going to put one in each pot, and these Supertunias are going to be really, really good fillers in these pots. Supertunias are an annual, so you can only have them until it frosts. Now the next plant that we are going to plant in this is a perennial, and I'll back up here so you can see it in full. This is the Blue Arrow Juniper, and this one will get quite large, but right now it's got lots of fresh new growth on it, so I know it's put on all of its growth primarily for the season, and I'm going to actually plant this out into the garden this fall. So that's a nice tip or trick in terms of planning your garden that can be really useful. I know that I'm going to want to replace the 2 large viburnum shrubs that I have over there. Those arrowwood viburnums have been in the ground for probably 7 years, and the last 3 years we have gotten viburnum beetle, and you may not be able to tell too much from here, but they are becoming rapidly defoliated by those, and they do not have any real kind of checks and balances in my garden, so there aren't any birds that are going to eat them. So I'm going to be replacing them with these junipers. Before I do though, I'm going to enjoy the summer season with them in these pots, and that will give me plenty of time to work on getting those viburnums out, because it's going to be quite the task. Now my husband is going to be super happy with this because he hates those viburnums because they drop leaves and they drop little blooms and it gets in the pool, and then we have to clean the pool. So these junipers are going to be the perfect solution for that, because not only do they not drop leaves, but their evergreen will provide season-round interest. And to top that off, they don't require a whole lot of water, and they are going to be right up against that deck facing south and getting plenty of sun all day long, which is what they like. And I think they're going to look very beautiful in these pots. Now I want to make sure I get these deep enough, and I think they are. That looks pretty good. I do want to move it back a little bit more just so that I can get the Supertunia just in front of it if I can. It's not going to be easy. And I want to make sure that I have about an inch of soil between the plant and the wall of the pot, because that will ensure that the roots have some insulation against the heat of the sun during the day as it warms up this pot, because it does get really, really hot over here. Boy, I think I need to go a little bit deeper yet. The soil just keeps falling back in on me. Okay, now I think we've got it. And we're just going to pop this right into the front of the pot. And it should fill in all around this and come down over the front. And I'm just packing the soil in pretty hard around this because I don't want it to blow around in the wind, because it will be a little bit top heavy. These pots are a very heavy ceramic and they are frost proof, and I leave them out all winter long, and they have lasted for several years for me that way. They were a great buy from Costco, and they usually have some every year that look slightly different, so it's always fun to check them out. I did not get any additional ones this year, but the ones up on my deck are very similar to this. Okay, it doesn't look like much yet, but it's going to be beautiful. Let's do the other one. And we'll come through and get the tags off as well afterwards. So in the back of these pots also we have a nice little sedum, so that will be in the back of the pot, in addition to these petunias. And actually this one just started to put out some blooms, so you can see what they look like. Isn't that a gorgeous color? I think that's going to be awesome. And today's a really nice overcast day. And I mean, overcast doesn't make for a nice day, except for that it's perfect day for planting. I'm going to scrape all the soil away right up to that sedum, because again, I want to get this juniper towards the back of the pot. So I have room for that pretty petunia. Need to dig further. Now when I'm putting these in, I am trying to make sure that the wider part is going horizontal to the pool like this, because the wind comes in from the western direction this way, and if I turn them this way and they catch the main part, it'll be even more of a catch, like a sail, and we'll try to dislodge the plant a bit from its position. Now I'm just tucking the soil in with my fingers around the base, and we'll get this petunia in right here. Now if you see something like this in the soil around your plants, that's fine. That's just like a time release fertilizer that the grower has put in to ensure that the plant gets plenty of nutrients. Once we're done with these projects, we will come back through and take a look at everything that we've done at the end. Now, if I was putting just annuals into this pot, I would not be tucking everything in quite so hard, but because this is a juniper and they are really tough and I don't want them to be wind sails, I'm just trying to make sure that, so you can see how they're blowing in the wind there. I'm just trying to make sure that they're able to stand up and withstand that wind. We're now going to plant another variety of alyssum, and we're going to plant it over here by the fountain. And I had used alyssum along this edge last year and I absolutely loved it. So we're going to do that again. And this year I grew some alyssum from seed, so you can see that. And there is some that I already had planted out that I had grown from seed. Well, actually this was planted directly, it was sown directly into the ground, so you can see some of those. But because of the mulch in this garden bed, it didn't grow quite as well as I hoped, so I'm going to be filling in some of the gaps with this, but it's the exact same kind of alyssum. This is called royal alyssum. So this royal alyssum is a little bit more of a multicolored alyssum, and I'll show you this one that is blooming up close, so you can see how it's got like some purple, kind of pinkish and white, all of those kind of mixed together. And these are going to make some nice little clumps of alyssum in here. That provide for a beautiful ground cover throughout the season. And again, this is kind of partial shade. It gets sun. This is facing the east side, so it gets the morning sun, and then a little bit of filtered sun from the south as the sun comes up through here in midday. I have to say that I have thoroughly enjoyed having all of these seedlings to work with this year, and we'll probably be planting a lot of seedlings again over the winter this year under grow lights. It would be very, very expensive for me to do this and to use this many small ground covers without doing it by seed. So it just saves a lot of money. And I love having a little stock where I'm like, oh, I could just use this over there. I've got that on hand. It's wonderful. I've gotten a lot of questions over the years about how come I have no weeds in the garden. I will tell you, I definitely have weeds in my garden. I try to stay on top of them. I walk around my garden once or twice a day at least once every day, to kind of check on things and see how they're doing, and also just to do that, to check for weeds, because if I see them, I'm going to dig them up or pull them up right away. It makes a big difference. Now these liriope that I'm planting next to, they will come up and they will make like little fountains of this variegated grass, and that will be really pretty. It shouldn't cover these up too much because these will grow about 12 inches out, and so they should come out to the edge of the rock over here. Okay, so because these aren't flowering, it's very little impact right now, but I can tell you as we watch these over the next few weeks, it's really going to change. All right, next project we have here is to plant this ice bog rosemary. You guys know I had two here, and I don't really like the look of just two. I love the plant though, so I thought, I'm not sure how to divide it yet. I haven't really done any research on that, but since I saw these already at Lowe's, I thought I would pick another one up for $9.98. I think I told you they had them there, and I'm surprised that, you know, not more people have bought these because they're really beautiful plant. Okay, that looks like a nice start for a hole, and I just want to make sure that it's deep enough for the plant, but I don't want to bury it. Want it a little bit higher than the soil level here. And these are actually supposed to grow like a low mound, almost like a ground cover. So these should eventually, all three of these, touch each other. And I am looking forward to that because I think they are so beautiful. There we go. Now that does have pretty instant impact, and it's interesting because we have three that are actually a little bit different sizes at this point. All right, let's go do our next project. So I think I explained to you a little bit about this garden in the last video, about how I wanted to add to it with a little bit of different things for impact. And in order to do that, I do want to do some transplanting of phlox. This phlox is really close to this boxwood, and I like where this one is, but I'm going to take the section that's out front and I'm just going to pull it back and I'm going to put it here next to the pot. And then I have this other section of phlox right here that I'm going to also pull back and put next to this pot. And that's going to help to open up some space for some other plantings. And then I'm going to do possibly something similar over here with taking out the chunk that is in the front and next to that boxwood. So first things first, I'm just going to clear out some of the mulch in the area that I'm going to be moving the phlox to. And the deer do like these phlox, so I do have to spray them with liquid fence. Otherwise, they definitely get their tops nibbled right down. And that's okay to some extent because they do need, or they do well with being cut back in early spring, and it kind of helps to allow them to provide for more blooms. Some people refer to this as the Chelsea chop. It's something you can do this time of year to certain types of perennials that will allow them to become bushier and potentially provide more blooms for you. So what I just showed you was the garden technique that I use to be able to transplant perennials easily, or to be able to divide them easily. And that is simply just to dig out the part that you want to dig out and not the entire plant to divide it. And I find that it helps a bit with ensuring less transplant shock, both to the mother plant as well as the one that you're moving. Phlox don't need to be planted very deep, so I just took a little bit of soil out of the bottom of this, and it's planted about an inch in and on top. And we will need to water this in because there's a lot of competition in this garden bed from the roots of the tree. And now we're simply going to take this garden phlox and move it back towards the end of the rock border here. We're going to try and put it right about here. And in the case of this one, we're actually going to use the whole plant because I do want to move the entire plant. This is where we had a baptisia planted, and I'm telling you right now, if you're not sure how much you love a baptisia, make sure you are ready to commit to it, because I removed it and it's still sending some shoots up from pieces of root. And so that's what I'm kind of wrestling with right now. Okay, there we go. Oh, nope, there's a chunk. See that? Those things are hardy, hardy plants. They have very deep tap roots, unlike these phlox, which are very much close to the surface. This phlox blooms in late summer. This one's called Laura, and it has a dark pink bloom. Well, I guess it's kind of a bright pink, really. All right. Now these phlox also can grow back from small roots or that are left in the ground, or like by root cutting. They're a very easy care perennial. Some phlox are prone to powdery mildew. So if you have a lot of humidity, you want to make sure that you plant them in a place that gets really good air circulation. They've been breeding a lot more of them now that have more mildew resistance. If I plant one and I find that it gets powdery mildew, I usually just get rid of it because there's so many different ones to choose from. And they have these beautiful panicle blooms, very similar to hydrangea but herbaceous, and they're gorgeous. Let's take a look at what these look like from the front now of the bed, the way that I typically see it. And then I'm going to get them watered in. Okay, the boxwoods definitely have a lot more room now, so I think that looks great. We definitely got a lot of wind right now, so I'm going to get these things watered in because that can do some damage in terms of desiccating them or kind of drying them out rather quickly. When watering these, I'm just going to water straight down around the roots, not too much on the foliage. That way we'll get it exactly where we want it. And water around the outside of the perimeter so that as the roots grow and try to dig into the soil, it will encourage them to go outward. And these will probably look a little bit flappy for a couple of days, but it won't take long for them to really dig their roots in and be happy. After we're done with this watering, I have a few annuals that I want to plant in this garden bed as well to bring in a little bit more color. Alright, so the next annual that we are going to plant is this pretty salvia, and this is called Evolution Violet. This is an annual and it's kind of a dusty purple that reminds me of lavender blooms, but it is a salvia. So it is incredibly resilient, and it does really well here in the soil that I have, and it's going to get quite large. This one probably will get like, I mean, not huge, but like 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet with some really pretty purple blooms on it. So I'm just going to put a few of these in this garden bed. Now these are going to go on either side of the tree just behind it, near that false mophead cypress back there that I planted last year. So that one I think is really starting to get rooted in and will do much better this year, but we're going to put a couple of these back there. And then right in front of this daffodil foliage, we're going to put one there, and the same on the other side over here. So we'll have 4 total that we transplant into here. The good thing about this salvias is that they don't require a ton of water, and they will have some competition from the roots with this crab tree. Or crab apple. And they're not going to be very obvious right now, but it won't be long. Once the warm sun starts coming in here, they are going to be super happy. But they definitely require that warmth and the sunshine. These are a full sun plant. And pretty soon we'll be getting salvia blooms from the perennial salvia in this garden bed. And they are also a beautiful bluish purple, so they will go really well with this, but these are much lighter lavender purple, so they just will complement each other really well, I think. think gardening requires a lot of imagination. You have to think a bit about what something's going to look like in the future and be able to visualize it in your head. That is certainly a lot of what I do, and so sometimes I just stand back and take a look at my garden beds, and that really helps me visualize it. We are almost done. 2 more plants to get in. Okay, so the last 2 plants that we have are going into this garden bed, and they're just going to kind of be a little accent that's coming in through here. So I have a salvia back in here and one over here, or not a salvia, a scaviola. So let me show you what they look like. So this is a scaviola, and this one is called Scala Pink Bird, and you can see the beautiful pink blooms that it has on it. I've had some of these from Proven Winners and just generally several different varieties, and I really enjoyed them in this garden bed because they just add a little bit of a pop of color kind of creeping around different flowers that are in here. So I'm going to get these 2 planted. And these are going to go right by the daffodil foliage and the mum foliage and under the elderberry. These are very good sun lovers. They like it warm, they like it well drained, so they tolerate this spot really well. And we're just going to match that on this side. So you can tell that this is a really subtle change, but over time it really starts to fill in and acts as a ground cover and as a beautiful pink foil to some of the other blooms that are in here. And I think it's going to look really lovely and fit in great with all of the other color scheme that's happening in this garden bed. Well, everybody, that does it for today. I certainly am glad to have some of those projects checked off. I've still got some more plants that are on my list to get in the ground, so I hope you'll join me for that. Thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.